We've been looking at how America got to the place of securing what has been a long-running, multi-hundred-year sacrosanct right that's only been fortified or built up over time against governments or king-like politicians' desires to abuse detention powers. Now, there are moments, to be sure, where those rights that I've been telling you about have indeed been suspended. After Pearl Harbor, which was the actual World War that most legal experts say is the kind of thing, unlike a fake war or fake invasion, that can trigger certain enhanced presidential powers.
Hey everyone, Andrew here with True Voice. If you care about justice, equality, and holding power accountable, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss our takes on the big issues. Today, I'm reacting to an MSNBC video where Ari Melber breaks down Trump's recent losses at the Supreme Court and exposes the glaring double standard when it comes to due process under the MAGA agenda. Let's watch.
There were great fears of how the Japanese opponents and enemies might come in or abuse situations in the U.S. And so there was an executive order that actually didn't work very well, according to most folks who's ever looked into this and historians, seen as kind of a panic of the time, although it also was an existential World War scenario. But it basically made a giant over-inclusive category and tried to take people of any Japanese descent without any other security analysis and put them into internment camps in the U.S. And the Supreme Court ruled in Korematsu that that was, at the time in war, a national security constitutional act. So that's what it looked like in one of the rare times this has happened. But most scholars, legal experts, and even many military experts say that that was not the right call with all the facts in. And if you go to law school and you talk to judges, including many Federalist Society, conservative judges, and legal experts, they say it's one of the worst Supreme Court decisions ever. Here's President Reagan, who issued an apology for the action.
120,000 persons of Japanese ancestry living in the United States were forcibly removed from their homes and placed in makeshift internment camps. This action was taken without trial, without jury. It was based solely on race. Yet we must recognize that the internment of Japanese Americans was just that, a mistake.
A mistake as policy and legally. Well, again, in the moment you can say it was lawful in the sense that some bad things are lawful at the time, but it is not a precedent that any serious mainstream figure in law or military expertise has pointed to for support in a long time. Reagan even established a Civil Liberties Act, which acknowledged what he called that mistake and injustice. Now, Trump's Solicitor General John Sauer actually brought this up during his confirmation hearing in agreement with the idea that it was a mistake.
I believe there was a court order there that upheld, which has now been, I think, correctly repudiated by virtually everyone, a court order that upheld the internment of Japanese civilians in internment camps during...
As bad as it was, that court order was followed for years, was it not?
And I just wonder whether some historians might think we'd be better off if it hadn't been followed.
He wonders, in that example, if that abuse of government detention power should have not been followed. This is why they call it clever lawyering, because he works for an administration that has gone farther, not as far as Korematsu, nobody's saying that, but has gone farther than other administrations to stretch wartime detention powers, claiming a war right now, and then he's citing that in the opposite. Now, Trump wants to deport more people, and there are many ways he can do that that are constitutional. But he's also sending out lawyers to push the courts past the very lines they draw. And there's some very clear hypocrisy on the record. Take the pandemic we all lived through. Just 5 years back, it was many conservative Republicans who looked at COVID restrictions, which did, of course, restrict Americans and other individuals' liberty to some degree temporarily. And they, at the time, made the very arguments that they now resist against far graver due process violations on behalf of Trump's deportation agenda.
If you're now an American citizen living in Florida that wants to travel, they're going to put some form of restriction in your way. I mean, it's clearly unconstitutional.
I don't understand what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country.
The pandemic has resulted in previously unimaginable restrictions on individual liberty.
Justice Samuel Alito criticizing a SCOTUS ruling pausing the deportation of Venezuelan men. Alito says that the court behaved hastily and prematurely.
How do you have the authority to order something that so clearly contravenes the Bill of Rights of the United States, the U.S. Constitution?
I am for due process specifically for me. I'm not that concerned whether someone who broke a law, my law, to get into my country and is taking welfare from my pocket gets due process.
Due process for, quote, me, not for them or you. But that's the whole point. Remember, due process attaches regardless of what someone's accused of, because that's the whole point. And there are people who've been convicted of terrible things, all the way up, including murder, who under our system are entitled to due process. And murderers, whatever their nationality, obviously by the end of the process, you feel a lot of judgment of them. But they get the due process along the way. And a lot of reasonable people would say a murderer is worse than an unlawful migrant, even if both broke different rules. So there you have the conservatives who are on record quite recently in a real-world example saying Bill of Rights, due process rules, COVID objections, and now they're going soft, they're going wobbly, some of them, sweeping other people's rights to the side, sometimes admitting as a matter of rhetoric or perhaps confession that they just want to do it selectively. And if you want to do it selectively, then you don't support human rights, because they are for all humans. That's why what we're hearing from about deportation, and this will only apply to them, or maybe a few more of them, or even more, but maybe not you, is getting the whole thing backwards.
First off, I really appreciate how Ari lays out the history of due process in America. This isn't just some legal jargon. It's the backbone of our democracy. The right to a fair trial, to be heard, and to not be detained without cause. That's what keeps us from sliding into authoritarianism. And yet, when you look at Trump's administration, you see this principle being twisted and stretched, all in the name of security or immigration enforcement. The reference to the Japanese internment during World War II hits hard. That was a horrific mistake, a clear abuse of power fueled by fear and racism. It's telling that even conservatives today, like Reagan's administration and Trump's own Solicitor General, acknowledge how wrong it was. And yet, the Trump administration pushes the courts to go beyond even those limits, trying to normalize bypassing due process for immigrants. That's chilling. What really bothers me is the blatant hypocrisy. Conservatives were quick to oppose COVID restrictions as an infringement on liberty, and rightfully so. But when it comes to deporting people without basic legal protections, many of the same voices go silent or even support it. That's not about protecting rights. That's about selectively deciding who deserves them and who doesn't. And that selective justice is exactly what undermines our shared values as Americans. Due process isn't a privilege reserved for some. It's a fundamental right for everyone, whether you're a citizen, an immigrant, or even someone accused of serious crime. That's the promise America makes. If we start picking and choosing who gets these rights, we're no longer living up to the ideals of fairness and justice. So, watching this video, I feel a deep urgency to remind everyone that defending due process isn't just legal, it's patriotic. Protecting these rights protects the soul of our democracy. All right, that's my take on Ari Melber's analysis. If you agree that due process should apply to all and that no one is above the law, not even presidents, make sure to like this video, share with your friends, and of course subscribe to True Voice for more honest conversations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.